Welcome to Rowdy Rants. I'm Rowdy. Subject today we're going to be talking about in my insurrection series is Joe Biden and his gun registration scheme. His answer to the AR-15 plague, you would think, is gun registration, NFA style. National Firearms Act is what we're talking about. They are wanting to force a gun registration of evil assault weapons at $200 a pop. There are literally millions of these firearms in the United States, all purchased perfectly legally. We're talking about AR-15s, or as Joe called it, an AR-14. Mini 14s, AK-47, SKS, AK-74, FNFAL, British L1A1. I could go on all day. Of course, it's from Joe Biden, and if you listen to him do any talking, it's no surprise that it makes no sense. Their demands that evil assault weapons must be removed from our streets. Never seen an assault weapon get up and shoot anyone by itself. Without the human factor, it does not happen. And of course, this is going to have the gun rights and gun culture activists all up in arms, because basically what we're talking about is the Democrats are changing gun culture to gun criminality. Fun fact, who else registered firearms in history for the good of the people? The Weimar Republic. This is pre-World War II, pre-Nazi era. They forced gun registration. That's why the Nazis didn't have to go far to know who had guns. The entire concept of gun registration is abhorrent to anyone, especially the idea that people are going to cough up $200 a whack for a rifle that they purchase, or a handgun, because you can bet they're going to include handguns on this. Handguns with a high-capacity magazine. They're going to include everything they can. I wouldn't be surprised to see 22 rifles on the list. Anything, all black rifles, anything that has a military equivalent, anything that can take a high-capacity magazine, possibly even anything that can take a detachable magazine. I don't see how anybody can be agreeable to this farce. And that's what it is. It's an absolute farce. Adding to the fact is that, as usual, we have a politician that has no idea what he's really talking about. With good old Joe talking about his AR-14, as I've stated before, with Joe Biden, when he's in familiar ground, he's well versed, he can speak well of it, he doesn't need much coaching, if any at all, especially if he's talking about something that is processed within Congress. On the other hand, you get Joe Biden talking about firearms. He's absolutely clueless. He has no idea what he's talking about. Once again, you get Joe Biden talking about firearms. He doesn't know a magazine from a clip. He has no understanding about firearm capacity. Now, a particular risk here is the potential for the Democrats to sweep the Senate, which would give them control of the House of Representatives if they retain it, and the Senate, and if Biden actually does become president. Yes, you can bet they are going to go after guns. And they're going to make as deep of a cut as they possibly can. Just like the Democrats always do. They take everything they can get and more. And hell and be damned, anybody that's against them, they don't care. The Democrats are speaking to their echo chamber, and that's the only ones they're concerned about. The only ones that the Democrats are concerned about is their base, because they can always grow their base by bribing them with more handouts. Now, something that you gun owners out there may want to be thinking about is the fact that when you purchased your AR-15, that number was registered to you. Now, yeah, a lot of people say, well, cash sale, I sold it to somebody else. Doesn't mean they're not going to sneak in and search. It doesn't mean they're not going to kick the door in and search. The Democrats mean business here. You have a registered firearm, they're going to want it if you don't go pay that $200 fee. And regardless of the fact paying the $200 fee, there's nothing to stop them from taking it. This is just the next step. If you purchase that firearm face to face from somebody else, you can bet that somebody else is going to get real forthcoming when the jackbooted thugs come knocking on the door looking for that firearm because they didn't pay that $200 tax. You're next. This is going to be something that's going to be a problem for more than just a few. Now, you can talk all the smack you want about how, oh, they can have my guns when they prime for my cold, dead fingers. They've done that. Waco, Ruby Ridge. You know, it ain't the first time. And I'm sorry, I don't think the Biden administration is very far away from the administrations that oversaw that mess too. And don't even start thinking about, oh, I'm going to head for the hills, I'll hide my guns. Because with the threats and the fines, your wife's going to rat you out. Dilbert down the road isn't going to back you up. He's going to be the first one to turn in his guns when they start talking about the fines and jail time. 9 out of 10 gun owners are going to flip. They're going to roll over just like that, roll up like yesterday's newspaper. It might be a good idea to go grab Dilbert and Grady and your crazy uncle and aunt and drag them down and make sure they vote. And I mean, not for Biden. It's time to exercise a little bit of influence. Because we're getting ready to see a shift now in the power in America away from the citizenry. And we need to do something about that. Because it's coming. Just as sure as they're little green apples if the Biden administration gets in there. I've actually heard people talking about how, oh, they don't have the manpower to do that. You're full of it. Department of Homeland Security can be repurposed in a heartbeat, along with any other department. Heck, EPA is armed. You know, think it over here, folks. They have the manpower to do this. They're not going to go out all in one shot. They're going to go out high profile in certain areas to try and scare people into following through. Now, anybody that's been keeping up with the news knows that we have the wonderful BLM, Black Lives Matter, and Antifa out here with their peaceful protests that seem to repeatedly burn entire areas down. And don't even start on, saying that, oh, well, Rowdy has problems with black people. You don't know what you're talking about. I don't have problems with any people. I have problems with the way people act. And it's black, white, green, yellow, blue, brown, yellow. It doesn't matter to me. If you're a jackass, you're a jackass. But when we see these protests out here, you see the marchers in the streets. I am not telling anyone to go out and brandish a weapon. If you're not under direct threat, you have no business doing something stupid like that. Don't do it. You're just making another news story that's derogatory to gun owners. Don't be a jackass. Don't be a Dilbert. Now, I'm sure there's a few of you sitting there saying, well, I've got all that beat, Rowdy. You just don't know. Well, Rowdy's not stupid. Rowdy's been around. So one thing you might want to consider is most shooters buy ammo and shoot it up. At the most gun owners have less than 100 rounds available for any said firearm. And there's absolutely nothing stopping Biden from issuing an executive order banning the sale of 223 ammo and 308 ammo. And poof, it's gone from the shelf. Now your gun's a paperweight. So, you may think the Biden administration is the greatest thing since Skippy Peanut Butter. And you think that you've got a way around these things. You don't. The Democrats have been working on this playbook for a long time. Joe Biden himself sat in front of a camera responding to a reporter's questioning. That Second Amendment does not say you can't restrict what guns somebody can own. So he's had time to think this through, or he's been instructed clearly enough to understand that he can abridge and derail and take away your guns. And he will. I've got a couple other things to say about this before I close out. For the gun owners, now is our time to rise up and make our voices heard. And this is not a joke. It is time to make our voices heard at the ballot box, loud and clear. We don't want to win by a little bit. We don't want to win by a landslide. We want to win by a tsunami. It's time to go make sure Dilbert is registered to vote and get him there to do it. It's time to go dig out Uncle Tom, Uncle Fred, Aunt Jean, whoever. Explain the situation to them. Get them registered to vote. Take a vacation day. Take a day off. It'll be worth it in the long run. That one day of pay will more than be made up by the fact that you keep your guns. You keep our way of life. We keep our safety. It's time to make our voices heard. Lastly, you need to remember, whether you support it or don't like it, the Democrats pushed through Obamacare completely partisan. They did not involve the Republicans at all. They don't need them. They didn't need them then. They won't need them now. If they get control, they'll do this by themselves. They've proven they'll do it. They did it with Obamacare. Whether you support it or not, you have to acknowledge they did what they said they were going to do, and they'll do it again. But this time, it's our Second Amendment that is getting gutted. It's time to get out and vote. All right, I'm Rowdy. That's it. That's my rant. Have a nice day.